And on this note, I'll be handing over to Harry, who is going to take us through the practical aspect of business analysis. Okay, Harley is someone that is quite committed to the community. I spoke with him a couple of weeks ago in respect to the need to share some of his wealth of experience with the members. And he told me what he was doing in Nova Scotia. I was amazed in terms of how the guy practically is helping folks there with their resume, interview sessions, and all that, all free of charge. He shared some videos with me, and I was amazed that we've got some Nigerians that are able to sacrifice their time and resources for the help of others. And after discussing with him, he was quite willing to share with us this evening. I want to commend Harry. Thank you so much for making our time. I know it wasn't easy when we spoke, but again, you say you're going to make it, and here we are. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Harley, and let's take it off from here.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Harry. I know we've lost some time, so I'm going to go straight to the point. And I just want to quickly say I appreciate Mosita for the initiative and this opportunity. Also, what I'm going to talk about is not everything about business analysis activities. It's just some of the things that have helped me to get into a job and to do my work effectively, and things that I also share with other people. And I've also had testimonies of people that have gotten jobs. So I'm taking this class from a practical perspective. I'm not going to talk about the BABOK and all the jargons in it, but I'll be very specific to things that will help you to figure out transferable skills you've had in your experience in case you are looking for a business analysis job, or what is expected of you when you get the job, what your colleagues expect you, or what your company expects you to deliver. This webinar is by NIPCA. I'm sure we all know that, but for myself, I've been in IT for several years. I'm in CBAP, and I have other ITIL certification, Lean Six Sigma. I'm a green belt, and I carry other certifications. I also run something like an NGO, not for profit, for immigrants in Nova Scotia to help them in getting business analysis jobs. Quickly, I'm going to talk about some key elements that are required of a business analyst. One is that a business analyst needs to know or understand. I want to ask, can everybody see the screen properly, or is there something not showing, please? I just want feedback. Can we see
the screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
Awesome.
see the screen.
Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't get that. I didn't clarify that before I moved on. So for a business analyst, one of the key elements is to understand the business analysis process knowledge. Because there are several books for business analysis, and there are several domains, business domains, where you can carry out these activities. And different people have different styles of how you should start or where you should end. So what I'm going to do is present how I usually start. It doesn't apply to every project, but at least it gives us an idea. And that is why I call this one the business analysis process knowledge. Another thing that is required is the behavioral skills. So being analytical, being a critical thinker, all these things are very critical for a BA. And in Canada, I kind of figure out that they are more concerned about your behavioral skills in the interview than the hard skills. So our ability to explain to the person interviewing that, yes, I have learned these skills over time. I hear a lot of them say that it's difficult to teach soft skills. It's very easy to teach hard skills. So they are looking for people with soft skills. Technology skills is also important, but most likely for a BA, you learn things at your work, or there are things you've already learned before that you can transfer. Domain knowledge is very key. I've worked in the telecoms, I've worked in the US health insurance, I've worked in the education domain. So understanding the domain you work, makes you stand out above your colleagues if you're already working, and also recognition. But my particular where I want to go to today is on the BA process knowledge. That's where I want to dwell on today. And this diagram just captures everything I'm going to say. So I'm really going to dwell on this and the next slide, and we are done. And I have to move as quickly as possible. For business analysis, if you are aware of the software development life cycle, you must have seen some of these things, or if you've done your PMI. But most projects, waterfall, and Agile doesn't use this name, but Agile just, from my own perspective, I know some other people might know better, but Agile just does this in iterations, making sure that every time you deliver something, maybe every 2 weeks, is something usable, but somehow there are still things from here you can pick and maybe use in Agile. But the first most important thing is the initiation phase, where we have our project charter, which is our rights to start the project, or which is the instruction to start the project. For a business analyst, depending on your level of business analysis, if you are working the strategic level, you might also be the one doing the project charter. But if you are working in maybe the tactical level or operational level, you might just be a BA assigned to a project manager to deliver a particular solution.
We can't hear you, Harry.
I can hear very well.
You can't.
I can hear you.
I can hear you loud and clear.
I can hear him too.
Okay, he said some people can hear me. So if you can't hear me, I really don't know what is.
Yeah, if you can't hear him, then check your connection. Probably your sound or speaker from your laptop or your phone, depending on what you're using. Ali, you can go ahead.
Please, let's try to just send a chat if you have a comment, not to interrupt, please.
Okay. So the initiation phase, that's where, so if you are a strategic BA, you might be the one doing the project charter. If not, you'll be assigned to a PM that would have, sorted out this project charter. But I don't want to go into what the project charter entails and all that, because there are a lot more other things we can talk about. And I have about 30 minutes. One of the important things that a BA does, immediately you are called into a project, is to look into the project charter to understand the project, the problem statement, or to understand the reason exactly why we are doing this project. That's very key. That's one of the reasons of doing the project charter. It tells us why. Is there an opportunity for us to realize, or is there a problem that we are trying to solve? And after looking into that, at least that gives you a direction of what the project's all about. Another thing we do is to identify our stakeholders. Stakeholder identification is very key. So if you look at what I say, I didn't say stakeholder classification, just to identify maybe who is the sponsor, who is the PM, who are my developers, how many business units am I going to be working with, or is it just one business unit? How many class, maybe do I have SMEs in the business unit that, when we need clarification, we'll be able to help. And then you move to the planning stage. Now, this planning stage is very key. I've been asked in an interview a question that directly relates to planning. And the question was, what do you do? What is the importance of planning to business analysis work? I was asked in an interview that. So it's a very key area. And there are 5 things that we mainly do. It can be more, but I just picked the 5 things because I remember them very well. And the first one is to plan your business analysis approach. And what that means is just, if you know about Agile and Waterfall, that's just what it's talking about. So for this project, based on the project charter and based on the organization and the way they carry out their project, what approach am I going to be using for this particular project? Am I going to be using the Agile, or am I going to be using Waterfall? Now, some organizations are mixed, so depending on the project, but you can always sit down with the PM, or if you are also the PM, look at the organizational process assets to see how similar projects have been handled and how this one should be handled. So, but that's just all about the Plan B approach. Understanding that approach would affect the way the project life cycle. So it's very key to identify that at the onset of the project. The other thing is to plan business analysis communication. So how am I going to be communicating with my stakeholders? Remember that we are in planning phase. So I am not communicating yet. I'm just planning for communication. So the planning phase is to plan for the work, but I'm not doing the work yet. So plan communication. My stakeholders, are they in different time zones? Am I going to be using an online system to communicate with them? Are we going to be having stand-up meetings? Or what kind of communication? Am I going to be communicating with them? How frequently will I be communicating with them? All that will be in your communication plan. There are several templates online that you can use for this, and maybe the group might want to share some of those. The next thing is to do your stakeholder analysis. In initiation, we identified our stakeholders. In planning, we analyze and we classify our stakeholders. So we know who the developers are. Of course, we know who our PM and sponsor is. We know who our tester will be. We know who our SMEs are. We know the classification of business units. Maybe you are doing a project that we have users from marketing and maybe sales and distribution. If it is a CRM system, it is a singular system, but the way the two divisions will use that system will be slightly different. So it's always good to classify them and gather their requirements individually before maybe you call them into a chat session to see a broader picture of what solution you want to give them. The next thing to do is the requirements management plan. What I mean by the requirement management plan is it is good in the onset to plan for how changes to requirement to be handled. You don't want a case where you have started the project and you have signed off your business requirement document and someone comes with a new requirement, and that's when you are trying to figure out how to handle it. I've also been asked this question in interviews about how do you manage, they gave a scenario, but the whole idea was how do you manage changes to requirement after your business requirement document has been signed off? I'll just use a few seconds to answer that. And one of the first things to do in your planning phase is to have an impact analysis, also do a risk analysis. So after your impact and risk analysis, you can now share that information with your PM and sponsor, so you can all collectively make an informed decision. But you need to understand what is the impact of adding this requirement at this stage. What is the impact of not adding this requirement? What risk does this project face if we do not add or if we add? And what is the whole essence of this requirement? Because maybe someone brings up a requirement and it's not so good to just throw it off. Especially in Canada, you just don't tell people to go away. I'm not adding your requirement. Maybe back home, back in Nigeria, I could do that, but please don't say that in an interview. Listen, write down your impact analysis, your risk analysis, and then share that information with the PM and the sponsor and make a decision on if that requirement should be added or not. The next thing to do is your Plan B activity. For some of us that have worked as consultants in organization, or if you are working in an organization where you are paid according to the time that is allocated. So sometimes the PM will ask you for your BA estimate. So what's the estimate of the BA time you need to use? Might be 100 hours, might be 50 hours, but these things are really key if you are. But for some organizations that really don't care, they might not really ask. But it's good to make a plan of your activities and maybe an estimate, or to give you an idea of how your work should go. Some other things that you can add during the planning stage is the test plan and also the training plan, but I will not dwell on that because of time. The analysis phase is the next phase, and this is where the business analyst does a lot of work. And one of the first things that we do here is to do our current state analysis. For business analysts, this is a very important word. That's understand where I am. Okay, let's say I'm going to work. I'm at bus stop A. That's my current state. but I'm supposed to get to work, and work is in bus stop C. That's your future state. So understanding your current state could be, if you are delivering a new solution, it can be maybe manual process. It might be the project, let's say the project is automating a travels requisition process that is heavily paper-based. And right now, the future state is that the organization wants it paperless. They want it fully automated using a system, and they also want an approval system on mobile devices. So senior managers and managers can make travel approvals on the go, you know. So our current state is heavily manual. Our future state is automate this process so paper trails are completely eliminated. So then after you've identified where I am, you know where I'm going to, then you can now do your gap analysis. So how do I get to where I'm going to from where I am right now? You know, am I going to take, using the bus stop example, am I going to take a car, or am I going to trek, or am I going to take a bus? How many minutes will it take? You know, what's in my project charter? Because that gives a guide on some of those things. So you do your gap analysis. Now, from those gap analysis, can you see my mouse? Can you see the mouse, me moving the mouse? I'm just asking. Okay, so you can see the mouse. So let's say this place here, this side is my current state, and this is my future state. In between is my gap analysis. Now, in this gap analysis, I can break down my gap analysis in a way where I'm able to identify high-level requirements. So my gap analysis will tell me how to get to where I am. And from that, I can identify my high-level requirements. I'm going to assume that I'm talking to people that are new to business analysis. So please forgive me if this sounds too elementary. But from that gap analysis, what I mean by high-level are top blocks. So they are not granular. So I've heard people ask me, what do you mean by high level? That's what I'm trying to explain. So what are the, like, for lack of a better word, business objectives, you know, that I can glean from this gap that I have. So after doing that, I think I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So maybe I should not overflog that. When I get there, I will talk about it. So after your gap analysis, you elicit your requirements. And after eliciting your requirements, you elicit your requirements from business stakeholders. That's another big talk. But after that, you prioritize your requirements and you document those requirements. And after documenting requirements, you share them with the business users. I will go more into that in the next slide, and you get your sign off. When we are done with that, we go to our design and build. In our design and build is where you, as a BA, engage the developer, show them what your business requirement is, and what the expectation of the business is, or what the expectations of the business is exactly. Now, if you are working as a systems analyst, you might also be the one that is supposed to draft the technical requirement document, but not every BA does that. So if you are not doing that, then you will liaise with the developer or the vendor to draft the technical requirement document. Sometimes, if you are working with a vendor, this might be an opportunity to renegotiate your service levels, depending on what they are delivering to you. And after that, you get sign off to your technical requirement document. For me, it's not necessary, but I also try to do the walkthrough I did with my business requirement document with the business. I also try to schedule a walkthrough between the developer, myself, using the technical requirements document. The reason is just that I want to make sure that we are all on the same page, the developer and the business, because I'm like the bridge in between them. So when we get the technical requirements signed off, usually by me, or usually by the business analyst and the developer, then we can now, then the developer can now start building what he needs to design and build. So if it's an upgrade, then they can maybe go to their test environment, you know, to start maybe do the upgrade in the test environment and try out things out. If it is a completely new solution, they can start their design and they can build. So I usually don't get myself engaged in that because that's strictly for the developer or the vendor to do. Now, when they are done doing this in the test environment, different organizations have different names for where the developers put the build. Some call it the development environment. Some do it in the test environment, but whatever it is called, it is not done in the production environment. Production environment is the live environment where the users, all the information from the users is stored or the application is linked to. So after this is done in the development environment, we now go to quality assurance. Now in quality assurance as a BA, that is when you are thinking about your test cases. Now I'll quickly like to say that your test cases as a business analyst should be linked to the requirements, the functional and non-functional requirements in your BRD. So one of the things that I like to put in my BRD or create another document I like to do is called a traceability matrix. So a traceability matrix links the requirements, the functional requirements, the non-functional requirements. It links it to the business objective, which is called the backward traceability. And the traceability matrix also links our functional and non-functional requirements to the test cases, which is called the forward traceability. What this does is that if a test case fails, I'm able to figure out the requirement that is impacted, and I'm able to figure out the business objective that will be impacted. So the traceability matrix is always good because depending on your acceptance criteria, in the BRD, there are different sections. Okay, let me backtrack a bit. In the BRD, there are different sections. One section in the BRD is business objectives. Another section in the BRD is your assumptions and constraints, but I won't talk about that because of time. Another thing in the BRD is your current state, which I mentioned earlier, your future state, your functional requirements, your non-functional requirements, and your acceptance criteria. Now, your acceptance criteria is what the business expects to see before they will agree for this solution to move to production. So it's good to have all those things in one and sign it off, so before we even get to testing, the business is already sure what their test result will look like. For instance, the business can say, if 90% of our test cases pass, then we can move to production. Or if we prioritize our requirements, then we can say, if 90% of our high priority requirements pass, then we can move to production. But all these are clearly stated in your acceptance criteria. And what that means is what the business will see for them to accept for this solution to move to production. So in our quality assurance, we want to make sure that our traceability matrix is done. We want to make sure that our test cases and test plan is done. We also want to start maybe planning for our training manuals, depending on what it is. It might be a new solution. It might be an improved process. So, and it's all part of people change management, user awareness, training, getting people excited about the change. And in Canada, people change management is a very big thing because they are kind of, I think it's Canada-wide, but in Atlantic Canada, people are very adverse to change. We don't like change. So you have to, find a way to make them excited about the change. I've gone into projects, even where I work, where the business doesn't want to talk. You schedule meetings and they are very quiet. They really don't want to engage. And one of the instances I have to ask, is there anything I'm saying or am I talking too fast? He said, no, that doing a process improvement and we're all kind of scared that people will lose their jobs. So I had to explain to her, which is part of people change management. You're not losing your job. There are so many things that you're supposed to do. There are lots of KPIs you have and your department is not meeting that KPI. I am here to help you optimize your process so that we can automate things that you shouldn't be working on so that you have time to do other important things and meet your KPI. So I'm here to help improve your process, not for you to lose your job, but so that you can be more effective at your job and meet your KPIs. So all those is all part of what a business analyst does, although your organization, if they are large enough, could employ a change management expert to come and do that. But you must have it at your mind, at back of your mind, that you are always engaging business, so you must have some people skill too. So training manual is also a way of creating awareness. And another thing is preparing cheat sheets. I won't talk about that because of my time. Testing. During testing, this is where we are going to take our test plan, and we are going to now take every test case and try out every test case in our dev environment or test environment. Remember that these test cases are linked to our requirements, the functional and non-functional requirements. The functional requirements are the things that the things that the system is supposed to do. There are lots of definition, but I want to just, in a layman explanation, the things that the system is supposed to do. The non-functional requirements are the things that enable, that makes the user enjoy or makes it easier for them to do that particular function they are going to do. I'll give an example. The functional requirements for NIPCA, don't mind my examples, but it's just the only way I can figure out what to say. So the functional requirement for NIPCA is to give us power. The non-functional requirement is that power available when I need it? Is the power available? Is the power there and in the right capacity? So non-functional requirement usually talks about security, usually talks about availability, capacity, ease of use. So those things that make you enjoy the work. Now, you can go to your online to look for technical explanation, but that's just what it is. So the user will now do, and there are several types of tests. There's unit test, which most developers do and BAs also do, and testing each component of that solution to see how it functions. And there is integration test. The guys working in infrastructure will know a lot more about that. How does the various parts of the system integrate and function and work, maybe in terms of network, maybe the web server and other parts of the infrastructure, how do they talk to each other? And there's also user acceptance test. The user acceptance test is the one that you are doing exactly what the business is supposed to do and testing in relation to the requirements using the test cases. Another kind of test is regression test. So regression test is, remember the word regress. Regress means to go back. So let's say, for instance, a system is doing something and you upgraded it, and that upgrade is supposed to, the system does 1, 2, 3, and the upgrade is going to have 4, 5, 6. When you are testing, you are not just going to test 4, 5, 6. You are going to do regression tests to make sure that 1, 2, 3 that was working yesterday before we upgraded is still working. So those are some of the things we do as a business analyst. That's just one of the explanations of regression tests. So you need to factor that into your test cases. We also, after you've done all your tests and you've gotten your pass and all that, then you prepare your test result. The test result, if you did your business requirement document properly with an acceptance criteria section, your test result will be easy to do, because beforehand, you have already determined what the business needs to see for this solution to proceed. So it's just to write a report to the business or the sponsor, not the sponsor, whoever is delegated to, stand on behalf of the business to say, okay, fine, we have 95% of our high priority requirements passed and 60% of our low level requirements failed. But based on the acceptance criteria, I am recommending that this solution move to production because the acceptance criteria says 90% of our high level requirements must pass. So whatever it is, you put it down. And but before then, there are things you will do during testing. Some test cases will fail, and you have to, write down your defects, log your defects back to the developer for them to fix. So there's a lot of back and forth before you prepare your test results and you give to the business. And then you get approval from business for go or no go. So business is okay, fine. Based on your recommendation and based on the acceptance criteria, we are going to move forward with this system for it to be moved to production, or no go. You guys go back to the drawing board, go back anywhere and fix these defects. So after that is done, you can, depending on your organization, if it's a large organization where they have IT service management implemented, there's something they call the Change Advisory Board. So the Change Advisory Board is like a set of people that sit down to deliberate on every change that is supposed to go live. And those guys have a calendar to determine which change will go in at what particular time, depending on their agreement with the business. So if the business has said that for this year, we are only going to accept 10 hours of downtime for our CRM, the Change Advisory Board knows. So they know that we guys have already used 9 hours of downtime for all kinds of changes we've done over the year. We cannot accept this change. So maybe it has to move to next year or whatever. So, but it doesn't happen in organizations. So you get your CAB approval for deployment and you begin to train your user groups. So schedule meetings with the user group, sales and development, sales and distribution or marketing or whatever one you have, excuse me. The next stage is the deployment, where the business deploys this particular solution to production, and you can also conduct an early life support. Early life support is just to get different technical guys together, maybe developers, the service desk, all in one room, you know, so that the early issues that are coming can easily be addressed. As a BA, you shouldn't just deploy and say, okay, bye-bye. No, because you have a relationship with the team and you're like a bridge. So I usually advise, if possible, to have early life support to make sure that issues that come immediately after deployment are resolved by technical people as quickly as possible. And this can also feed into your knowledge base on how to fix these likely issues or frequently asked questions. And another thing you do is to get feedback from the business on how the change went. Another thing is the maintenance. In the maintenance, this is where we work on the support structure. This is very broad because I don't know the different sectors we are working on, but sometimes it is necessary, sometimes it's not necessary. So let's say a vendor is providing, a solution to your organization. There might be a support structure, there might not be, but it's usually good to just clarify. You guys have deployed this solution. How will you be supporting it? Do we have classes of issues, of incidents? Which is severity 1, which is severity 2, which is severity 2, 3? How quickly do we attend to these issues? What are the service levels? All those are part of our support structure. Who is supposed to do, let's say, like severity 1. Let's say severity 1 is the lowest class of issue. Is it first line? Is it second line? All that talk. Then another thing is to manage vendor performance. Sometimes BA do that, sometimes they don't. Another thing is to identify trends, create reports, and make recommendations, and also lessons learned. Now, I'm going to leave this and go to my next slide, where I think I'll just dwell a little on the analysis phase, because that analysis phase is a very critical one for BAs, because the name is business analysis, so you do a lot of analysis. For the step 1, we want to conduct our current state analysis. If you remember, I just want to expatiate the analysis phase. So you conduct your current state analysis you can use different tools like process flows and use cases, and use cases and user stories usually used to get me confused then, but it doesn't anymore. But they are completely two different things. So what a use case does, a use case is just the interaction between an actor and maybe a system, but that's not for this class. Maybe somebody else might be able to take a class on how to design use cases. So, but that's one of those are some of the tools that I use to document my current state. Another thing is to conduct the future state analysis, and it could be a process flow and all that. You also do your gap analysis. I mentioned that before, and your to-be process review and design. The step 2 is to elicit requirements from stakeholder groups to document high-level requirements. There are different ways to elicit requirements. One of the good things you do, sometimes you might go through the process, the organizational process assets of the organization to get maybe manuals. If it's an upgrade, I'm going to go through the current manuals to see exactly the functionality that this solution is supposed to give. Sometimes, not sometimes, an application should have a release note, and the release note will document every feature of that particular solution. So I like to go through the release note. I like to go through manuals, so that I can, if it's an upgrade, so I can identify the current things the solution does, so that in my testing for the upgrade, I can test those current things, which I called regression the last time. So you identify your high-level requirements. Then from those high-level requirements, you now document your detailed level requirements. These detailed level requirements, you break it down into your assumptions and your constraints, and your functional and non-functional requirements, and your acceptance criteria. All these things, your high-level requirements, detailed level requirements, current state, future state, assumptions and constraints, functional and non-functional requirements, acceptance criteria are supposed to be your business requirement document. Because at the end of the day, when you are done with this project, somebody else is supposed to take this and know exactly what you did and how you did it. And two, it also helps you in your testing and your engagement with the developers or the vendor. Another thing I do after documenting my BRD is to facilitate a JAT session. So a JAT session is a joint application development session where you do like a walkthrough with the business stakeholders, with the developers, with the sponsor, the PM, and different business units to talk about, what you have in your business requirement document, or what you have in your current process and what the new process would be like. And the JAT session is usually when there is no concession between business units or maybe the developer. You can bring everybody and they can come in there and there can be a what's that word? There can be a concession or something like that. So for me, I like to bring my sponsor into this meeting, because if sales and distribution and marketing, which almost never agree in almost every organization, if I bring them both and they are both not agreeing, because the sponsor is there will not be so much noise. So I can explain to them what we are going to do. We can decide on the way forward. And if people are still not agreeing, I could break up the meeting for maybe like 5 minutes for everybody to cool down. And I have a talk with the sponsor on what direction do you think we should go? And whatever the person says, I get a sign off in the JAT session, and we take that as a signed business requirement document. After then, we document what we have agreed on, and everything is put in the business requirement document, and we get the approval for that. So those are all the things that I wanted to talk about today. Some of these things can be broken down further, but I don't want to bore us with all that. I just wanted to explain it in a way that, when you are attending an interview, questions can come from anywhere. It could be from testing where they are talking about regression or whatever. And, when a question is asked, you can just quickly try and figure out where in this life cycle is this question coming from? Is it on quality assurance? I've been to an interview where they asked me a question, and the guy said, if you come into a team that has not succeeded in ever doing anything right, everything they've done, they never meet KPI, they fail in everything, what will you do as a business analyst? And this was a business analyst interview, but I had to use business analysis to answer the question. Number one, I want to understand our current state. Where are we now? That thing you are calling failure, what is the failure? Is it that we are meeting only 20%? Or if it's the service desk, we are supposed to receive resolve issues in maybe 1 minute and we are resolving them in 5 minutes, you know. So what is our future state? What's the KPI that the business has set for us to meet? What is that target? Then I will do a gap analysis. Then from there, I will sit down with my team, because in Canada, team engagement is always important. They don't want single champions. They want the team to be a champion. So I will sit down with my teammates and we'll do the gap analysis. And from the gap analysis, we identify areas where we can improve, and we'll take a small section of the team to try out these improvements that we have talked about. I will share the finding with my boss, and if my boss approves, then we put this into plan. And also I'll put like a measurement tracker to see how we are improving. And maybe after a better a period of trying out this group for like maybe a week or 1 month, and if everything works, then we can now deploy this improvement to the whole organization. And I said, if we do this together and we do it with the right tools and skills and with the right attitude, we'll be able to take this team from being a non-performing team to an excellent performing team. So they can bring out questions from anywhere, so just be ready. So I think that's all I want to talk about for today, so I don't just keep rambling, because I can only hear myself.
Harry, thank you very much, Harry. Thank you for this wonderful session. We quite appreciate this. Can you go through the chat, Harry? There are a couple of questions in the chat section. Can you go through to see if you're able to answer some of the questions?
Okay, I think I opened something now.
Then the ones we can't, you can't answer because of time, we'll just put that together, and you'll probably answer offline, and we'll find a way to communicate it back to members.
Yeah, so the first one says, are gaps in the BA world synonymous to deltas? What if your current state in this case, a specific process is a fit and not a gap? What do you regard them as in the BA world? Okay. No, when I was talking about gap analysis, if I understand the question, when I was talking about gap analysis, if, let's say, for instance, you're upgrading, we have a solution, we have maybe an application, version 1, we are upgrading to version 10. So version 10 is my future, version 1 is my current state. Or if it is like the example I gave about automating a heavily manual paper-based process like the travel requisition, our current state is that manual state that we are, and our future state is the business objective or the opportunity that we are trying to get, which is automating and ensuring that there are no paper trails in the process. I don't know if I'm trying to understand what the question is, but that's what I mean by the gap analysis or the fit gap analysis. It is just, this is where I am, this is where I'm going to, how do I get there? Then you start identifying your requirements from those gaps. If I don't answer your question, please, you can still send me a message later and maybe we can talk better and I will trash that up. But I just want to see if I can quickly go to like 2 or 3 more questions. You said you link your functional requirements to what? No, I said there's in our requirements traceability matrix. So look at it like this. If you can see my mouse, I should have brought a requirement traceability. If you can see my mouse, you see this middle, let's say this middle is my functional requirement. This functional requirement should be backward traceable to my business objectives. So if I have 3 business objectives, my requirement must trace to one of those business objectives. The reason is because my ability to trace my requirements back to my business objective is what is called validating your requirements. So ensuring that my requirement meets my business objective. You don't write requirements for writing requirements' sake. They must tie into something that you have identified in the Charter as a business objective. Now, if the requirement is what is still in the middle, it must also trace forward to your test cases. So let's say if a test case now fails, I know what requirement is impacted and I know what business objective is impacted. And all these things is necessary. It's also very important for prioritization and for acceptance criteria. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what I think the answer should be. Okay, the next one says, sorry, I didn't get that. Traceability matrix. Oh, yes, traceability matrix is on if you can see my screen, it's under quality assurance. Draft and review test cases, create traceability matrix. So tracing my requirements to business objectives, which is backward, and tracing my requirements to test cases, which is forward. Let me just see if I can quickly get another question. You link your non-functional requirements to the business needs. What did you link your function? So when I say functional and non-functional requirements, I'm talking about everything as a whole. So functional and non-functional requirements must be linked to your business objectives. But the non-functional requirements usually has like 3 or 4 categories, and I've mentioned them is availability, capacity, security, and user experience, or ease of use. So those are all non-functional requirements, but these things must be somehow linked to the business objectives backward, and they must also be linked. Even your non-functional requirements should be properly tested. So they must be able to link to your test cases. How do you create your acceptance criteria? And how do you link it to the traceability matrix? Because of time, maybe I should have brought a business requirement document, that one that's already prepared, but I can't do that now. My mind didn't go there. So maybe one of these other classes that we have, somebody else might be able to, talk about, maybe show us a real business requirement document, and we can see all the sections. We can even take a project. We can simulate a project and we can fill a BRD. So some of us can be some of the stakeholders. Somebody will just walk through a particular BRD using a simulated, an assumed, whatever. So KPIs, aside requirements, traceability matrix, test plan, business requirement documents, what are other artifacts do BA use in their day-to-day? There are different organizational process assets that you can use. But these ones you have mentioned are documents that the business analyst prepares. So if you are talking about what a BA uses, for a solution, you could have your release notes. Release notes are very important to me because the user manual or the user guide might only talk about what the business feels the features they want to use. But the release note will tell you everything about what the developer wants that particular solution to provide. So I've worked in a place where I was upgrading, they were upgrading a system and I was the BA. And when I read the release notes, I found out that the business did not even know half of what that solution can do. They were just using about 10%. And they were being promised that the upgrade is going to add 90% that already exists. Why? Because the vendor wanted to make money and nobody took time to read the release note. But when I read the release note, I realized that these things that they are telling you the upgraded version will do is already existing in the system, but they are just hidden. But the organization was already paying for it, So anyway, I'm going to another question. Who creates the test plans? Now, this is a very key one. If you are working in a large organization where they have testers or they have a testing unit, usually you would have engaged them. So in your stakeholder analysis, you would have identified who your tester is. And immediately you are done with your BRD. For me, I usually hand over or I do a walkthrough of my BRD, my acceptance criteria with the tester. So the tester will take my acceptance criteria and use that one to develop their test plan and their test cases. you know. But if you are working in a smaller organization or some large organizations, like now, organizations don't want to employ testers anymore. They want a BA that will be a PM, a BA, a data analyst, and everything. So that is why I like to put the acceptance criteria in my BRD. So it makes the work of the tester, whether it is myself or somebody else, easier. So they can just go look at the acceptance criteria and prepare the test plan and test cases. I can't show us examples today because there's no time. So, Osita, I don't know whether I should stop or I should just go through one more question or two more questions.
So let me see it. Yeah, go through more two questions.
Okay.
After that, we'll wrap up. Then we're going to put all the other questions together, get answers to them, and communicate to all. Okay.
Okay. So it says, do you develop a standard project tracker template before you begin the project, and what does it look like? Now, for this particular session, we are talking about business analysis activities. So even though some of these things are similar to what a project management or the PM life cycle, but I'm only identifying the BA part. Now, if you are also the PM, you are going to do like a project plan, you know, and all that you are supposed to do during the planning phase, you know. But I didn't talk about that because I'm looking at this from a business analyst side. So as a business analyst, I would have taken that project plan from the PM, or yeah, I'll take that project plan, or I will give input into that project plan, because the project plan is all encompassing. That's what the tester will do, the BA will do, the quality assurance and everything, and what the developers will do, every engagement. So if you are a PM and also a BA, then you should have project plan templates in your organization. If you don't have, you can ask the group, or there are some online that you can use. It is good to develop this in the planning phase. So you said before you begin the project. No, it is the project charter that authorizes the project to start. So I don't know what you mean by before you begin the project, because before I begin the project, why am I doing a project plan? Because before I begin the project, except you are involved in the project initiation phase in terms of before senior management gives the approval for that to start. So let's say you are working in a PMO office and you have lots of initiatives, and you guys need to decide which initiative you are going to go with and how do we prioritize all these initiatives. But all these I just mentioned that happens even before the initiation phase. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'll move to the next question. If you are not satisfied with my answer, please, you can shoot me an email later and we'll talk about it. I hear you mention acceptance criteria a lot. I believe it's a component of the test plan. Is acceptance criteria a general term for entry and exit criteria in the BA world? Acceptance criteria is, like I said, simply, is just what you have agreed with the business. What will they see? What do they want to see, you know, for them to accept that this solution should move to production? Now, what I mean by what do they want to see in terms of our test cases and our requirements. So when I say acceptance criteria, I'm linking it specifically to our requirements and our test cases. So it might mean something else in some other domains, but acceptance criteria is that the business is saying, I will accept this solution if this amount of test cases or requirements pass. So I'm talking about it from that perspective. It might mean a broader thing somewhere else, but that's the context in which I'm using it. And you said, is acceptance criteria a general term for entry and exit criteria in the BA world? When you say entry and exit, I don't know, that there's a lot of entry and exit criteria in different places, but I hope at least I'm able to explain what I am talking about. So the last question I will take, there are lots here, but please forgive me, I can't go through everything because of time. Is the support structure not part of the signed contract with the vendor? Is that the role of the BA? Yes, the support structure is usually signed with the contract of the... Okay, let me give an example. In an interview, for a BA interview, they asked me a question and they said, what will you do because in that organization, for some strange reason, it's only in Canada I've heard things like this happen. I've never heard it in Nigeria that it's even possible. A vendor did a change without letting the business know. It was a cloud solution. They did the change because they've said they have other clients in that cloud solution. So I don't understand. If they didn't have an obligation to let everybody know. Now, immediately they did that change, all the reports for this particular organization I was working with were not working anymore. Why? Because the tables in the database, some of the column headers have changed. They added new columns and they just did all kinds of weird things. So they were using Tableau as a reporting tool, and Tableau could not figure out which table is what and what. All the names have changed. Unfortunately, the vendor did not even give them a data dictionary. So there was even nothing to instruct them. Sure, it was just a whole lot of mess. And they asked me this question: what will I do if I come into this organization and with this vendor? Now, I was asked this question in a business analysis interview. And what this is talking about, it's talking about service level agreement. It's talking about support structure. So as a BA, it might not be what something that is written in the bar book that you should do, but the role of the BA in Canada is expanding. Organizations are refusing to employ BAs and expect a BA to do a PM work. Sometimes they don't even employ service level managers anymore. And depending on the organization, they expect the BA for your project, you should be able to do a couple of all these things. So I'm not saying you are going to do that, but it's also good to just have an understanding. And it might just be that thing, it might be that extra edge that you as a BA will bring to the business. And, you save your business a lot of money, and, you might even be recognized for it, but at least you get the fulfillment that, yes, beyond the call of duty, I was able to do this and I was able to achieve this. So I think I'm going to end there. There are lots of other questions.
Yeah.
Is acceptance criteria documented in the BRD or in the test plan?
Yeah, so
like I said, I usually put it in my BRD. It makes the life of the tester easier. But for me, it is standard to put my acceptance criteria there. And some other times I will show us what my BRD looks like and how the acceptance section looks like. Sorry, Osita. Thank you.
yeah, great, Harry. I know we can go on and on and on and on. It's not going to end for sure. So let me just what's the time? This 9:10. We are targeting to wrap up by 9:15. So more like 5 minutes more. I know we've got more questions on the chat platform.
Yes, they are over.
Let's see.
23.
Yeah, those ones we can get those ones across to you, so you're gonna respond to them offline. But I just want like 2 people in the group to ask any specific question they have on this. Just 2 people. Yeah, 2 persons by voice. Just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, Harry.
Yes, please.
My name is AK. Thank you so much for today. My question is, when do we have the next class? Yeah, in the next class, I'm sure all questions will be answered. So when is the next class?
Okay,
so Sita that we answer that question.
Let's get the next question. AK, I'll come back to you on that. Next question.
I have a question. My name is Jacob. I'm speaking from Mississauga.
Okay.
Harry, thank you very much for tonight. A quick one. Can you throw more clarity on quality assurance? Okay, you used a lot of high-sounding words while you were explaining that. So if you could please bring it down a bit, to a level where I can easily, grasp what you're saying there. Okay.
Okay, quickly, what I'm just saying, the quality assurance. Yeah, thank you for the question. What I was trying to say is that this is where I make sure that all the documentation that I require to move ahead, they are all ready and I'm set to go. So that's why I talked about the test cases, traceability matrix, training manual, cheat sheet, and everything is ready. So I'm just making sure that I'm assured of the quality of delivery that I'm going to get. Remember that quality is not just a section on its own. Quality is supposed to be supposed to start from our initiation through every phase. So having quality at the back of my mind. I'm going through all my documentations to make sure that everything about quality in terms of documentation, you know, is already ready. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. This is 9:13, so obviously we need to wrap it here at this point. I know personally I want us to go on and on, but because of time and we need to be respectful of people's time as well. I want to appreciate each and every one of us once again for making our time to be part of this. This is just the beginning of several other series that is going to come, both in business analysis and several other domains as well. I want to appreciate you guys for the support, and I want to appreciate you guys for the maturity you've shown all this while, in making sure that we collaborate and build an enviable community. I don't know, is Florence online at this time? Florence? Okay, she's not online at this time. Okay, so for all the questions, we're going to collect all the questions that are yet to be answered, get Harry to respond to that, and we'll communicate back to you guys. And just like we mentioned before, the session was recorded, so we've got the recording as well, which we are going to be archiving with several other series as well that we'll be having after now. Thank you, everyone. Thanks once again, and have a good night rest.
Good night. Have a great one.
Yep.
Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, Harry.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much, Harry.